Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We're in Joshua, and we're going to be looking at chapter 21 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, chapter 21 gives an account of the 48 cities that were given to the priests and to the Levites. Now, Levi's descendants were chosen by God to be his own peculiar possession. They were to inhabit no land because God himself was to be their portion. God said, I want the children of Levi, that their portion is me. They don't get any inheritance in the land of the promised land. Now, this is seen in Numbers chapter 18, verse 20, and Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 9. Each tribe was to set aside four cities out of their possession to be for the Levites. This possession was to also include pasture lands for their cattle. And we see that in Numbers 35, verses 1 through 8. Now, you may say, well, isn't that their possession? No. They weren't given any land to possess, but they had to live somewhere. I mean, you can't just say, well, you keep no possessions, no cities, no nothing. Well, then they have no place to live. So God made a provision for them that they would be given cities, and those cities would be Levite cities, and they would live in those cities. Now, in verses 1 through 7, now these verses give the general breakdown of the number of cities that each of the families of the Levites received. Now, I'm not going to read all of these verses. We're going to pick out a couple of verses and read them. But like I said, in verses 1 through 7, it gives the breakdown of these cities that the Levites were given. Now, in verse 4, it says here, and the lot came out for the families of the Kohathites and the children of Aaron. Now, this is the Kohathites, and it says what? And the children of Aaron, the priest, which were of the Levites, had by lot out of their tribe of Judah, and out of the tribe of Simeon, and out of the tribe of Benjamin, 13 cities. So, 13 of the 48 cities were given specifically to the priests. The other 35 cities were given to the Levites. Now, we see here in this verse that these priests, these sons of Aaron, they received 13 cities. And the cities, now these cities are located only in the territory of Judah, which includes Simeon, because Simeon had his portion in the south part of Judah. So it includes Judah and Benjamin and Simeon. Now, these three tribes are the ones that are closest to Jerusalem. In fact, basically, they kind of surround Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem isn't in the center of these three tribes. It's more towards the north part. But the city of Jerusalem is in that territory, in those cities, in the possession of Judah and Benjamin and Simeon. Now, you may say to yourself, well, but that's where the priests should be. They should be close to Jerusalem. And normally that's what we would think. But listen, we have to remember, that the tabernacle and the ark are not in Jerusalem. They are in Shiloh. And as I said a couple of lessons ago, the Ark of the Covenant is going to stay in Shiloh for about 300 years. And the Ark would not come to Jerusalem until David brings it to Jerusalem and puts it in the tabernacle that he built for it. And this would be about, actually, this, when David brings the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, it's about 400 years after this, our context of Joshua chapter 21. Now, the closest that any priest would be to the tabernacle would be about 15 to 20 miles. It wasn't until King David that the city of Jerusalem would become the capital of the land. And we see that in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, verses 4 through 8. The city, this is going to be the city where the kings would reign from. So it's not until David's time, King David's time, when Jerusalem actually becomes the city of David, and from then on, kings reign from Jerusalem. But until then, it's not. It's not what you would think. Normally, when you think of Jerusalem, you think of the king's city, the capital. But up until David's time, Jerusalem wasn't that at all. Therefore, it must have been God who moved upon the hearts of the Israelites to give the priests cities that were around Jerusalem, because God saw that eventually the ark would be moved to Jerusalem and it would remain there until the Babylonian captivity. So again, you may think to yourself, why would God give the priests cities that were down around Jerusalem if the ark is going to be up in the center of the promised land for the next 300 years? Well, it's because the ark is going to be moved down to Jerusalem by King David, and it's going to stay there from then on until, like I said, until the Babylonian captivity. Now, in verses 8 through 26, let's read verse 19. Verse 19 says, Anathoth with her suburbs, and Almon with her suburbs, 4 cities, all the cities of the children of Aaron, the priests, were 13 cities with their suburbs. So here we have the sons of Aaron. Remember, who are the sons of Aaron? They're the priests. And they received 13 cities. Now, the Kohathites, they received 10 cities. Now, in verses 27 to 33, we see the Gershonites, they receive 13 cities. And then also in verses 34 to 42, we see the Merarites, they received 12 cities. Now, this is a total of 48 cities that are given to the priests and to the Levites. Land given to the Levites was both on the east side and on the west side of the Jordan River. So the Levites had cities given to them on both sides of the Jordan River, in the promised land, and as I say, in the unpromised land, where Gad and Reuben and half tribe of Manasseh, they decided they wanted to stay there. So there were cities given to them on the east side of the Jordan River. Now, again, you have Levi. Levi has 3 sons. He has 3 sons: the Kohath, Gershom, and Miram, and that's why it's divided into 3. But from the descendants of the Kohathites is Aaron, and Aaron is a descendant of the Kohathites. And God said that the priests would come from the line of Aaron, who Aaron was a Kohathite. This is why when you see that 13 cities were given to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and then 10 more cities were given to the rest of the Kohathites, because Aaron was a son of Kohath. Now, verses 43 to 45, we see God fulfilled his promise. All right, God here is fulfilling his promise. Now, God gave the children of Israel the right to the whole land, and they actually possessed a good portion of it. There were still Canaanites that lived in parts of the land, and God authorized them to go and to possess the rest of the land that was in the promised land, that was promised to them. But the taking and the possessing of the rest of the land would have to wait a few years until their population grows. In Exodus, let's read Exodus chapter 23. Exodus 23, verses 29 to 31. And it says here, 29, it says, I will not drive them out. This is God speaking. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the beasts of the field multiply against you. By little and little I will drive them out from before you until you be increased and inherit the land. And I will set your bounds from where? From the Red Sea, even unto the Sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. So, God brings them in, and he gives them this land, but it's not all of it yet. There's Canaanites still in the land. And the reason why God didn't give them the whole land in 5, 6, 7, or 8 years is because God said, you're sparse. There's not enough people there. So, and we don't want the beasts of the land multiplying and then lions coming after you and that kind of thing. So it was to be, because of what we just read in Exodus, it was to be a gradual taking of the land that was promised to them. God, like I said, God was told them he's not going to give them the whole land all at once. It's going to be gradual. And God said in verse 31 that the land was to extend all the way down to the Red Sea. But understand that it was always God's will that they take what? That they take all of the promised land. It wasn't God's will that they only take part of it and then not take the rest later on when they multiply in the land. They weren't. Listen, God would have helped each tribe to take the full amount that God had promised to them. So when they go in there, they go in and they take a good part of the promised land, but they don't take it all. And that's God's will. That was God holding them back. And now, in a number of years, they're going to multiply. And as they multiply, they are supposed to take the rest, all the way down to the Red Sea. Now, let's read verse 44 of Joshua 21. And it says here, and the Lord gave them rest round about, according to all that he sware unto their fathers. And there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. The Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. Now, as I said a number of lessons ago, victory over our enemy is never determined by how big or how powerful they are, but it's determined by our walk with God. As long as we stay humble and dependent upon God, seeking his will and giving God's word priority in our heart, then listen, then no enemy can stand before us. As soon as we stray in our heart away from God and from his word, then defeat will come, no matter how big or how small the enemy is. And that's seen way number of lessons ago, back with Achan and Ai. It doesn't matter how big or small the enemy is. If our heart isn't right with God, even a little enemy can take us over. A little sin can defeat us. A little persecution can drive us away. So we have to be careful. It's through humility. It's through our walk with God. Now, verse 45 says, There failed nothing of any good thing which the Lord had spoken unto the house of Israel. All came to pass. Now, God receives all the glory. Listen, it was God. He was the one that made the promise to Abraham and continued the promise with Moses. God was the one who brought them out of Egypt and out of the 40 years in the wilderness. God was the one who brought them through the Jordan River and helped them to conquer the land. The only one who receives the glory for everything coming to pass is God. It's not us. It's no human. It's not Joshua and the armies and things like that. No. God is the one. Let's read it again. It says, There failed nothing of any good thing, what? Which the Lord had spoken unto the house of Israel. All of it came to pass, and it all came to pass because God helped. It was all because of God. God gets the glory, not man. So here we have the 48 cities given to the priests and to the Levites, and they're spread out from south to north on the west side of the Jordan River, and also there's some on the east side of the river, down in the land, the territory of Reuben and Manasseh and Gad. And so this is what chapter 21 is about: the giving of the cities for the priests and the Levites to live in while they serve the temple, while they serve God. All right, we're going to continue on in chapter 22 next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.